President Mogae, you have been, you have been president of Botswana for 10 years. You are Special Envoy, UN Special Envoy for Climate Change. We are in Copenhagen. What do you expect tomorrow night, the last day of the negotiation, to be put on the table?
I expect some agreement for action by the global community in the light of the general recognition that time for action is now. Unfortunately, for now, maybe the majority of negotiators are restating their maximum positions. What is important is that we should get down to brass tacks. Somebody must have the courage to put down their specific positions on the basis of to which others can respond.
Who do you think is going to take this courage? The EU has been taking leadership for the past 2 years in driving the process forward, has proposed ambitious targets, financing, fast start financing. Japan has done the same. Now it seems that China and the US are sort of pointing the finger at each other, trying to push each other to move forward. Who do you think is going to actually take this courage?
I think it is incumbent on all to move. But you are right, China and the US in particular, being the biggest polluters and not being bound by the Kyoto Protocol, do have to come forward. I think that if they had some mutual accommodation between themselves, that will be relevant to the general negotiations. We will know what China is willing to do and what the United States is willing to do. After all, some of the additional things that the EU says is prepared to do are conditional upon their knowing what China and the United States are going to do. So to some extent, any move by the United States and China, not only in mutual accommodation between the two of them, but also in relation to overall objectives of the international community, any move on their part would have the effect, I feel, of unlocking the trigger mechanism where people could come down to brass tacks and actually negotiate in good faith the actual targets, the target reduction targets, prevention targets, funding targets, mitigation, etc.
Now, the US today, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has arrived in Copenhagen and has pledged $100 billion of funding per year by 2020. Isn't this enough of a move to show their commitment? Of course, it was conditional on a deal, on a comprehensive and operational deal. Is that the courage you're talking about, or?
That's the courage I'm talking about, and it's an element of the solution. It's a component of the solution. You remember the Ethiopian Prime Minister speaking on behalf of the African group, which is a subgroup of the G77, said that he accepts the $10 billion for the next 3 years, the startup fund for the immediate future, and then a build up to $100 billion by 2020. by 2020. So it is the same language, put slightly differently. He said, well, initially it could build up to about 50 billion a year by 2015 and should be 100 billion a year by 2020. Therefore, there it is. Two delegations have mentioned comparable orders of magnitude, and the British Prime Minister has acknowledged that as being hopeful signs, and I share the British Prime Minister's feeling that those are hopeful signs, and those are the kind of things we are looking for to unlock the logjam.
Now, one of the stumbling blocks is obviously the format of this deal. Some countries want a post-Kyoto protocol, want to continue on the Kyoto protocols. Others want a new single agreement. It's obviously...
that is unfortunately one of the biggest stumbling blocks, because there is agreement that there should be a fund, there is agreement that should be mitigation, there is agreement that should be technology transfer, there is agreement that action should be taken. But procedurally, the developing countries, as represented by the G77, feel that we should continue with the Kyoto Protocol, and in fact also with the second commitment level under the Kyoto Protocol. The reason for that, they say, is that Kyoto represents binding agreements freely entered into by the developed countries, including most of the European countries, well, including the European Union, and that therefore it is something on the table that they don't want to lose. They fear that if the Kyoto Protocol is cancelled or set aside, then there will be no progression, no incrementality. Anything, we will be kind of starting all over again instead of progressing from where Kyoto had taken us in terms of undertakings by the developed countries, which are historically responsible for the majority of climate change causes, and up. And that is why they say they want the Kyoto Protocol as intact, and then a new package which constitutes additional action to what is contained in the Kyoto Protocol. The developed countries, on the other hand, say what is important is to agree what the respective obligations and rights of all countries at the present time are in a new package deal. So that's one of the hurdles to be crossed.
Now, some of the source...
To make it possible to reach agreement on the individual components, such as financing, such as technology transfers.